In the midst of social distancing and business lockdowns, a freelance writer and a graphic artist bought a bus, converted it into a tiny home on wheels, and moved out of our 4-bedroom house. 1 year later, we downsized to a Chevy Express. Now we travel between Texas and Pennsylvania from April through November while exploring small towns with rich histories. In the winter, we hunker down in Texas in our schoolie and dream of our next big trip.
We're Alan and Teresa.
And we're rolling with our nomies.
Okay.
Good morning. Standing here in Bennettsville, South Carolina, in front of the Bicentennial Live Oak. It's put here in 2019 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the founding of the town. So it was founded in 1819. I know I'm going to love...
That tree was not put there in 2019. That
well,
plaque
the
was.
plaque was. Sorry, the plaque was put here, not the tree. But they call it the Bicentennial Live Oak. I know I'm going to love Bennettsville because we have already received an illustrious welcome from the Visitor Center staff. And this looks like a beautiful town. We're anxious to walk it, show it to you, and see what we can find. So come along with us and enjoy the ride. So the Visitor Center, they call it the D Mccall House. It's a 2-story Queen Anne style brick house built in 1884, and it features a turret, which you can see there on the left, and a 1-story porch with trim. Mr. McCall operated Marlborough County's first bank in 1886 and brought the railroad to the county in 1884. He also established the Bennettsville Cotton Mill in 1897. The town of McCall is named for him, but this house is now home to the Bennettsville Visitor Center, Chamber of Commerce, and the Bennettsville Downtown Development Association. And an interesting fact we just learned is, at one time it was a bank.
In the 90s,
Yeah.
they turned it into a bank.
They put a vault in it and a one-way mirror for the teller.
And their drive-through went through the gazebo over here.
Yeah, so really interesting history here at the Visitor Center, and this is a beautiful home, but it's not the most beautiful thing we've seen yet, so hang on, you're going to see some real gems. Thomas Memorial Baptist Church was the first church in Bennettsville. It was established in the 1830s, but in the late 1890s, it replaced an earlier structure. This building here was built, and it has a large belfry tower, arched entrances, and notable stained glass. And you can see, maybe not in the camera, but there are screens over the windows up in the belfry to keep the birds out. I'm guessing they don't want bats in their belfry.
They do not want bats in their belfry.
So,
And those ain't windows, those are just archways.
yeah, just archways, but the archways are covered with mesh to keep out the birds.
Yeah. Because they don't want bats in their belfry. That is a gorgeous, gorgeous church. And it's an imposing church.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the D Mccall House. It's right next to the Visitor Center and was owned by the same man who owned the Visitor Center when it was built. This is older though. It's built in 1826 and was purchased from H.H. Covington by D McCall in 1871. He lived in the house until 1884. Then it was restored and given to Marlborough County by Hugh L. McCall Jr., who was great-grandson of D. McCall. That took place in 1991. Now it is the home to the Marlborough County Veterans Affairs Office.
Okay.
We are now looking at the oldest black church in Bennettsville. The congregation was organized in 1867. The first building was built in this location in 1886, and it stood here until burned in 1930. The present building was built in 1932. The white building adjacent to the church was the parsonage, and the childhood home of Marion Wright Edelman, who now runs the Children's Defense Fund, and that was founded by Mrs. Edelman.
All right.
So the St. Michael's United Methodist Church was organized in 1868 as the first Methodist church for blacks in Bennettsville. The first building on this site was in 1872. The present building constructed in 1918 through 23.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, so this building's actually older than
The one we
Baptist,
just looked at.
building, which is about 10 years later. But it's still beautiful. Both of them are beautiful churches.
Yeah, this one looks like a castle.
So this whole street, this whole block of street from where we're standing now to where we just walked from down there at G.R.E.A.T Street, they call the Gulf. From 1876 to 1976, Bennettsville had a prosperous colored business district called the Gulf. It was located on Market Street, going west from the corner of Liberty Street down to G.R.E.A.T Street. It was a small area of little more than 100 yards. Prior to integration, it was the only place African Americans could go for shopping and entertainment in Bennettsville. On weekends, 200 to 300 people would come to the Gulf to drink, dance, and socialize. It's thought that the Gulf got its name from the Gulf oil station on the corner of Market and Liberty. Businesses opened and thrived until 1930, when it began to decline due to the Great Depression. In the mid-30s, near the end of the Depression, the area was revived and businesses flourished. Black doctors, pharmacists, and dentists worked there. African American men met at Chestnut and Quick barber shops to discuss issues and set the political and social agendas for the black community in Marlborough County. So you can see the Gulf sign, and there's a foundation there.
Yeah, you can see the foundation to the Gulf station.
The Gulf station would have been there, and I would guess that it would have been there a good, probably long time, probably up into the 50s maybe.
Right, and you can still see some of the buildings from the bygone era.
James O. Breeden, buggies, wagons, and harness. I think that's an interesting building. You got the sign up there above the windows, and shows a little blast from the past there, what kind of business was there.
Yep. Yep.
So this is the home of Marlborough County's first bank. It was built in 1886. Founded by D Mccall, it had the name of Bank of Marlborough. All right, there are only 2 3-story buildings in the downtown Bennettsville, and the ground level of this building is a Masonic, well, it was a Masonic Lodge at one time. It was built in 1912, and you can see the Italianate architecture style and features the horizontal bands executed in the brick. You can see right there on the face the horizontal.
You can also see right here above this door the Masonic symbol.
Yeah, the Masonic symbol. Yeah. So that's a pretty neat looking building. Okay, so this church here is the first Presbyterian church of Bennettsville. It was founded in 1855 by 9 members of the Great PD Presbyterian Church. The first church was just a frame building, and it was dedicated in 1855. Then they built a second building, and it was completed in 1907, but before they could use it, it burned.
Even one time. Not even one service was held.
They didn't even use it once, and it burned. So they rebuilt that church, almost a duplicate of that second church, and it was constructed in 1911, and this is that building, and it's been in use since then, featuring a large central portico, and you can see it's a nice structure, really beautiful church.
It's a pretty church. Those poor people.
We're looking at the Shiness. Is built in 1903 by Alexander James Matheson, who's a prominent person here in town, a business person. He named it for his paternal grandmother's home in Sutherlandshire, Scotland. And he went on to be a prominent person here. I believe he was born in 1918. No, he died in 1918, and he's buried here in the local cemetery. So we're looking at the Murchison School. It was built in 1902. It's a beautiful Italian villa-style brick building with a 3-story central bell tower, low hip roof, and extensive interior and exterior decorative work. It was used as an elementary and a high school up until 1918 when the high school was built next to it. Now it's a library. But after that, 1918, when the high school was built, it was used as an elementary school up until by 1989 when they quit using it altogether.
Wow.
Okay, so they call this building the Matheson Building. It was built in 1915, originally as a hotel, and it features turn-of-the-century brick architecture with a second-story iron piazza. And you can see decorative designs up there with contrasting colored brick. Really nice work. This is the Dr. Kinney home. Now houses the Marlborough County Historical Museum. It's a small white building. In front of the museum was originally Dr. Kinney's office, and now it's a doctor's museum right here.
Right.
A medical museum. And he lived in this house. It was built in 1902 by his father, and then he went to medical school and lived in the house afterwards and operated out of the Denver. Okay. Now we're looking at the Jennings Brown House, and the Bennettsville Female Academy was built in 1826. It was also used as headquarters for the Union troops in 1865. It housed the Bennettsville Female Academy and built by the Bennettsville Academical Society, which was organized in 1828. The Female Academy used the oldest part of the building from 1833 to 1881 when it was located on East Main Street. Then it was moved to G.R.E.A.T Street and then to this location.
That's a mobile house.
The Kinney Building is the second 3-story building in downtown, located right prominently here, pretty close to the center of downtown. It was built in the early 20th century, 1909, and features bracketed eaves and paired windows. It's a variation of Italianate architecture, and it's now used as rental apartments. But right now, I think it's empty.
Nah, it looks like the upper stories are.
Lower level's empty, but the upper level is probably apartments. Yeah, there's a stairway going up there. All right, this may be one of the nicest buildings in downtown. It's built in 1889 and features an elaborate cast iron facade, considered one of Bennettsville's finest architectural treasures. General John McQueen was born in February 9, 1804, and served as a U.S. Congressman from 1849 to 1860. His law office sat on this site in this building in 1828. That's when he established his law firm. He was the general of the South Carolina militia and member of the First Confederate Congress. There are apartments and retail offices located in the building now.
Right. And there's stained glass windows all along the upper edge of the lower floor and in the centers of the upper floors.
Yeah.
Right.
Now we are looking at the Marlborough County Courthouse, built in 1881. It's the third structure to be located here on this site. The courtroom portion, third structure, was constructed between 1881 and 1885. The rest of the building was altered extensively in 1951. Several historical markers and monuments are located on the grounds. And I gotta say, you can see the top part of this building with the spire all the way down the street when you're first coming into town.
Before you hit the city limit signs, you can see it.
It's facing prominently the main street coming into town. When you enter town, this is the street you're on, and you can see it all the way outside of town. It's a nice building.
It is an awesome courthouse.
Well, that concludes our tour of Bennettsville, South Carolina. I'm glad you got to come along with us on the walk. This is a great town, great people, lots of beautiful buildings, lots of rich history, and some really good culture here. I can't recommend it enough. We're gonna go have lunch. We hear there's a great barbecue place here in town. Hey, next time you're going through South Carolina, make sure you stop in the small towns.
Stop in at the Bennettville Visitor Center. That lady has a map of all the barbecue places in South Carolina.
Oh yeah, the barbecue. It's a really cool map, barbecue map of South Carolina. All the places, and tells what flavor, whether it's smoky or hot or whatever kind of barbecue they have. So we're gonna go check out one of the town's most famous barbecue joints. See you next time. Don't forget to like us, subscribe us, and share us with your...
Alright, if I don't do this right, then I'm going to be on the bad side of my wife. So y'all bear with me and pray for me. But while you're doing that, don't forget, share us with your friends, like us if you like us if you don't, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out. God bless.